What's up guys, welcome back to Star Wars Probe. I'm Jared and I'm joined here by my brother and co-host Thomas.
Hey guys!
Today we are counting down our top 5 favourite ships in all of Star Wars.
So join us on this countdown, enjoy the video and tell us what your favourite Star Wars ships are in the comment section.
Number 5, the Droid Starfighter / Vulture Droid. The Droid Starfighter and the Vulture Droid were unmanned drone fighters used by the Trade Federation and later the CIS in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. These ships were a useful asset to the Separatist forces due to them being low cost and able to be manufactured in large quantities. Our introduction to these ships were in episode 1, in which we were shown the first version, which was named the Droid Starfighter. These ships proved to be a great threat to the fleets of Naboo starfighters manned by the pilots of Naboo, just before the destruction of the droid control ship.
We later saw an upgraded version of these ships in episode 3, with more weapons and higher intelligence, along with a new model name being the Vulture Droid. This version proved to be an even greater threat than the last, able to destroy a large portion of the Republic fleets at ease, including the ARC-170 starfighters, Republic gunships and Jedi Starfighters. Both versions of this ship are not only used as standard fighters but can also use their wings as legs and were able to be used on the battlefront as assault droids.
Number 4, the Jedi Starfighter. There were 2 known versions of this ship, first being the Delta 7 and the second being the Eta 2. The Delta 7 Interceptor, more commonly known as the first version of the Jedi Starfighter, was an interceptor used by the Republic just before the outbreak of the Clone Wars. The Starfighter was considered highly advanced at the time of its creation and carried sophisticated equipment but was also very expensive to produce. The ship was armed with 2 twin laser cannons, an advanced communication computer and a sensor array which kept the pilot of the ship well prepared in aerial combat. It was fairly prominent during the Clone Wars, mainly due to its use by the Jedi. One of the most famous encounters of the Delta 7 was the tracking of the bounty hunter Jango Fett by Obi-Wan Kenobi through the asteroid fields of Geonosis in episode 2.
The Eta 2 Interceptor, also known as the second version of the Jedi Starfighter, was a Republic starfighter used late in the Clone Wars that shared design elements with the Delta 7 Starfighter, as well as the TIE fighters of the later Galactic Empire. The Eta 2 was significantly shorter than its older brother the Delta 7. Like its predecessor, it was also too small to hold an onboard hyperdrive. Because of this, the Eta 2 had to rely on carrier vessels or transport rings for long distance travel. However, the ship had a full astromech droid socket instead of a static unit seen in the earlier model. The Eta 2 had more firepower at its disposal than the Delta 7, 2 large laser cannons and 2 ion cannons. While the size of its guns provided it with reasonable firepower, the fighter's limited power systems restricted its ability to fire continuously.
Number 3, the TIE Fighter. Though there were many variants of the TIE Fighter, we will be talking about the standard version used in the original trilogy in The Force Awakens. Just like the other 2 on this top 5 list, there were 2 known versions of the standard TIE Fighter, the original version used by the Empire and the upgraded version later used by the First Order. The TIE LN Starfighter, or more commonly known as the standard TIE Fighter, was the signature fighter ship of the Galactic Empire. Instantly recognisable from the roar of their engines, they exuded imperial power and prestige across the galaxy, seeing use throughout the Empire's political existence. The ship was a small, short-range fighter with twin ion engines which provided thrust and boosters capable of quickly adjusting the ship's direction. However, in order to minimise power drain, the TIE lacked key systems such as deflector shields and hyperdrives. The fighter's black wings were in fact an array of 12 solar collectors that absorbed power and directed it to the ship's twin engines and low temperature lasers. Its central cockpit was tightly fitted, incorporating flight controls, view screens, targeting systems and tracking equipment, including a homing beacon in case the vessel was stolen.
The TIE SF was a starfighter model used by the First Order. It was 2-seated unlike the previous TIE models and was fitted with enhanced weapons and sensor systems as well as hyperdrives and deflector shields. The TIE SF was reserved for members of the First Order's elite special forces. On the lower side of the vehicle, directly below the primary fuel tank, was a turret containing a pair of laser cannons and a mag-pulse warhead launcher. This version boasts weapons far more powerful than a standard TIE. Special Forces TIEs have hyperdrives, deflector shields and high-yield cells that provide additional power to onboard systems. These versatile attack ships are used for everything from reconnaissance to combat operations.
Number 2, the XWing Starfighter. X-Wing Starfighters were known by their distinctive wings that resembled an X in attack formation. During the Galactic Civil War, the Rebel Alliance used T-65B X-Wing Starfighters in a number of battles, including the Battle of Yavin and the Battle of Endor. Approximately 30 years later, a different variation of X-Wing, the T-70s, were used by the Resistance, whereas a more advanced model, the T-85, was used by the New Republic Starfleet. T-65B X-Wing Starfighters were manufactured by Incom Corporation. They had two pairs of wing-like strike foils or S-foils mounted at the rear end of the craft on opposite sides. Each of the four engines were attached to the wings next to the fuselage. Normally, the foils on each side locked in place flush against each other during combat. However, the foils were folded out. This gave the craft its distinctive X-like appearance when viewed from the front or rear. The craft's four laser cannons were placed at the tip of the wings. The single pilot sat in the cockpit, which was in the centre of the fuselage, and the astromech droid had a socket near the engines. The two proton torpedo launchers were located in grooves near the middle of the underside of the fuselage. In the cockpit, the pilot had access to the flight controls and a targeting computer. These highly manoeuvrable fighters measured 12.5 metres in length with a mass of 10 metric tons. They were equipped with a long-range hyperdrive system and shields which could be adjusted around the craft. Painted stripes on the rear of the S-foils identified each craft. The X-Wing's flight controls were similar to those of the T-16 Skyhopper, an airspeeder also produced by Incom Corporation.
The T-70 X-Wing fighter was a newer version of the classic X-Wing Starfighter used by the Resistance in its fight against the First Order approximately 30 years after the Battle of Endor. The T-70 X-Wing Starfighter was a cruciform starfighter. It was armed with 4 wing-mounted laser cannons and 2 projectile launchers. An underslung blaster cannon could also be mounted. The weapons were aimed using a targeting computer. The craft had one pilot and an astromech droid, and was equipped with a hyperdrive and a spotlight on the ventral surface below the cockpit. The astromech fit into a socket which could be variably configured for different models. The long nose featured the projectile launcher in the bottom and a sensor in the cone. Along with the 4 advanced 505 fuselage thrust engines, the craft featured thrusters with electromagnetic gyros for fine manoeuvres. The newer version was faster and more heavily armed than the old T-65s.
The number 1 spot on this top 5 list is taken by none other than the famous and much beloved the Millennium Falcon. The Millennium Falcon is a Corellian YT-1300 light freighter used by the smugglers Han Solo and Chewbacca during the Galactic Civil War. It was also previously owned by Lando Calrissian, who lost it to Han Solo in a game of Sabacc. Its aged appearance bellied numerous advanced modifications to boost the ship's speed, weapons and shield. Included was a hyperdrive engine amongst the fastest in the entire galaxy, enabling it to outrun Imperial Star Destroyers. It also had sensor-proof smuggling compartments, which were used during the rescue of Princess Leia Organa to evade the Imperial Stormtroopers.
In addition, its renowned hyperdrive supposedly made the Falcon the fastest ship in the galaxy. The ship was equipped with a backup hyperdrive compared to the primary engine that was much slower and often took several weeks or months to reach the nearest star system. It also had a Dejaric chess table featuring creatures found throughout the galaxy. At some point over the following 30 years, the sensor dish was replaced with a rectangular model due to Lando losing the classic round dish in Return of the Jedi. There is also a brief appearance of the Millennium Falcon in Episode 3 where Obi-Wan and Anakin had a part in a transport ship on Coruscant.
We chose the Millennium Falcon as our number 1 favourite Star Wars ship, not only because of its iconic presence and labelled as the flagship of all Star Wars ships, but because it has played such a heavy part in saving the Star Wars universe time and time again, and despite its close encounters, it's never successfully been destroyed. We hope the Millennium Falcon plays just as big a part in the new trilogy as it did the old. So that's it for this countdown. Hope you enjoyed the video.
Let us know what your favourite Star Wars ships are in the comments section.
And if you love Star Wars like we do and want all the latest news plus much more, then remember to click the subscribe button as we have new content up at least 3 times a week.
Well, that's it for today guys, thanks for joining us, hope you enjoyed the video and may the Force be with you all.
Thank you.